As a land use partner at McKenna and Aldridge, what I'm engaged in, as much as compliance with the local regulations, is the work of identifying trends and developing action strategies so that my clients are ahead of the curve. They're to the race early. They're going to be at the right place at the right time. That's very different than just checking boxes and filling in forms. It's the work of being actively engaged in the world and anticipating what's coming next. The last piece is the regulatory piece, which is the way we regulate land is always behind the way we're treating land. That is, these trends are always well in advance of the rules that allow for different uses. And there is an extreme resistance to change, not only in the governance and government sector, but in the community as well. So the question is how to make room for these really quickly changing trends without stifling them with old regulation. So that's another area that we have to be very focused on at this point. If we want to get the gains, we're going to have to take some of the pain, and one of the pains is we're going to have to rethink about how we regulate the use of space, the way we regulate the intensity of our communities, the variety of uses that are allowable, and the combination of uses that are permitted. The change has a built-in resistance, and that resistance translates into time. So that's a problem that we haven't solved yet, but I think it's going to come as people begin to see that the services they were accustomed to can't be delivered without some functional change. Another issue is that we have basically begun to identify that the environment is so much more complex than we previously understood it to be. But we regulate from that old kind of simplified notion of how the environment worked. So the California Environmental Quality Act, for example, which requires that we produce EIRs and that the EIRs are supposed to be an informational document for the community and for the decision maker before they make a decision, it's just become antiquated. It supports a multi-billion-dollar industry in California, so there's going to be extraordinary resistance to making a change in that law. But the problem is it doesn't really work. It's not delivering a better environmental product. It's really not informing decision makers anymore, because now the environmental document is shaped by what the courts say has to have in it. And so it's become less and less readable. It's become less and less informative, and it's become more and more rote. The difficulty with that is we can't make the best environmental decisions with a law that's out of date. The second thing is we're beginning to understand that the environmental impacts that occur are beyond the jurisdictional boundaries of the decision maker. So if you're in a small town and they're deciding that there are certain environmental impacts that you can't reach because the fix is in another community, they do nothing. So there's this need to recognize the greater interaction of communities and the greater complexity of the issues. And in my mind, we've got to move the environmental laws to the right level for the complexity of the problem. What all this government stuff turns out to require of the development community is more active engagement. That is, you have to be a part of the community. You have to move the agenda along if you want to stay in the game in a certain community. So there's no longer appropriate to wait till your next project to engage government. You have to get out there and start to shape policy, so policy will be where you need it when you get there.